Hey y'all, back with another post-show. What am I talking about? Post-show competition series video. You know what I'm talking about. If you're here, you've already listened to like the other five, so you know what's up. Anyways, this one is gonna be the big one. Post-show binging. We've all been there. It's not very fun, but how do we avoid it, right? Or how do we manage it if we've already started? So first and foremost, I am not a clinical psychologist or an eating disorder specialist. I have had an eating disorder growing up. I was anorexic for many years. And because of that, I do not like to throw around words like, anorexic or bulimia or, things like that. Or even like, depression and anxiety without, it's a very serious conversation, right? So you may not necessarily have binge eating disorder truly, but you may have binge tendencies after the show. I would say that almost every single person probably falls into the binge tendency category after a show. Not everybody, but most. And then some people, of course, will develop a true binge eating disorder, and then possibly even like a, binge purge cycle. So because of that, I will probably say like binge tendencies instead of like binge eating disorder. And I'm just very cognizant of that and my understanding of it and like what people truly go through when they struggle with like a real true eating disorder, and it happens for like years and years and years. So, but with that, I'm just like real stuttering over here. Maybe I need some more coffee. No, I'm actually good. This video is just very important, so I'm getting a little nervous because I want to make sure that I do a good job at it. Just being honest. And most people probably would edit this out, but I'm not going to edit these because I'm lazy, and that's just the truth. So here we go. Anyways, okay. Take 87. Binging after your show, overeating after your show. It happens to a lot of us. And that is just because basically you have dieted for a very long time and gotten to a very low body fat level to where your body most likely does not want to be. Now, I have a theory that people who are naturally leaner than others don't experience this as much because they don't have to necessarily either lose as much weight or it's not as challenging for them to get super lean. Like there are people that you can talk to who like you are like crushing and they're very lean and they're like, yeah, I'm good. And they're not like lying saying like, yeah, I'm fine. Like they're actually like pretty okay. And then there's some people who struggle like really, really hard to lose like 10 pounds. And a lot of that I do think has to do with kind of our just like body fat settling points that like everybody has. And that's just the reality of genetics. Doesn't mean that you can't get lean for the stage, just means that it might be a lot harder for you. And afterwards you might deal with these kind of side effects more so than maybe others. And then of course couple that with like if you're like a foodie like me, then you want to eat all the things just because you want to eat all the things on top of your brain screaming at you to eat all the things. Because you've now gotten to a super low body fat level to where your body was basically like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, we're kind of concerned. Like if this was like, back in the day, a few 100 million years ago, like you would be dying. And your body is basically telling you like, hey, like you're slowly dying, like we need you to go eat food. So when you understand like biology and how our bodies work, that makes a lot of sense, right? So you have all these things going on, right? Like you have the stimulation of the show, you have the like, it's over, I can finally eat this. You have like friends and family who are very well-meaning who like want to, because basically all prep you like talked about like all the things that you wanted to eat and the places that you wanted to go. And then you told this to people and they were like, let's go do it all, like right now. And they're totally fine to do it because like they've not been dieting for that whole time. So them having like a free meal or two like really isn't going to do much to them. But then if you have all these meals back to back to back to back, that can really add up. And then what ends up happening, generally speaking, so say like you do go out, right? Like after your show, like this is just kind of like the classic scenario. Like you go out after your show, you maybe have some, high calorie stuff, whatever. Next day, you maybe go out to have a few meals. Okay, you're good. But then what the problems start to happen is not necessarily just like the overeating. It's the like overeating by yourself and like feeling like you can't stop and like feeling like you don't have control and then saying fuck it and keep going. That's when the problem is, right? And that's what I would call like the binge eating tendencies after the show. And I've been there like, I can't like almost every single time after a show. And after this set of shows, I I knew shit was gonna get real, because I had been dieting for so long, and I already had a little bit of a taste of that after a show I did in Omaha. I had like a week, because I had 8 weeks in between Omaha and Tampa, so I had, and then that week I was traveling to Chicago for junior nationals, and if anybody's been to Chicago, it's like super foodie heaven. So on top of being like, well, I have time and feeling run down, and then having a few free meals, and then having like, well, let me just keep eating, like those kinds of things, it can get really out of hand really quick. And then so I knew that after this set of shows, it was going to be really, really challenging. And I've basically, the best way that I found, and I'm not going to be under any delusion to tell people that I have not overeaten. There have been times where I've felt that pull of like, I can't stop, I just need to eat this because I can finally eat it, and then but I don't want to do it tomorrow because I want to start fresh tomorrow, so let me just eat. That's happened. But I would say that there's been no like huge blowout binges, which has been really good. And generally speaking, like I would just have like maybe a few things, and then I'm okay, like stop, like you need to stop. Now, the calories were still happened. Like no matter how much of a better place it is mentally, like the calories were still there. So it's not like I didn't eat them. And I've been like perfect on my plan, but it's been drastically better than previous years. And I would say that the biggest thing is just me being like open and honest with myself and other people. Normally what happens when you overeat or you have a kind of like, you know, a binge or whatever, you're usually not going to do that with other people. Like you might like kind of eat a lot with like a friend or something, but like I'm talking about like the like I hate myself, I can't stop eating things. That's usually by yourself, right? And you're probably gonna hide that from people because nobody wants to be around people doing that. Like you're not like, yeah, I want to be really shameful and like I want to be out of control totally and just like eat this all in front of you. Like no, like that's gonna be by yourself, and it's gonna be something you're trying to hide. And for me, what I found was that first of all I had to be honest with myself, like why am I doing this, right? Like why do I consistently put myself in these bad positions, right? Like everything's going really good. I had an awesome diet. Now I'm going to try to set up for a successful off season. Why do I fuck this up, right? And you have to have that uncomfortable talk with yourself. And for me, it really stems down to like when things are going good, I like to make them harder on myself, because deep down I am not happy with myself or what I've accomplished or what I'm doing. And that's something internally that I need to work on, and that can present in a bunch of different ways. As far as like business stuff, like that usually presents in like being overwhelmed and like anxiety and like feeling like I'm just like a fucking failure. And then with like a show, like afterwards, because like everything's super heightened with food, it can present itself through, you know, like food. And just like using that as the way to make it harder on myself, because that's the one thing that I'm trying to be on top of, but I just, you know, kind of sabotage myself because I'm unhappy with myself. So nobody wants to like have that conversation with themselves. Like, hey, I think I'm a piece of shit. This is why I overeat. Like, no, that's not fun. But you have to sit down and say, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself in these situations? And that's how the only way you're going to be able to correct them. And then having a support system that you can communicate this with is so key. So for me this year, I really, you know, again, wanting to hide and like not talk about it, that's normal. But instead I've really tried to bring Ryan and Cliff in on the conversation and just be honest with them. And that's also hard because, you know, obviously Ryan's my, you know, boyfriend, significant other, and you don't want to talk about that with them sometimes, you know, because you're just like, first of all, like, he's a guy, he doesn't get it. He's like, well, why don't I just stop eating? And you're like, it's not that easy. Like, if it was, then I would just stop, obviously. Usually men don't understand the emotional side of food as well as women do. But just in general, like, that's just kind of like something that you just like, I generally don't want to talk to him about, but I've tried to force myself to, because I know that he, you know, we live together and, you know, like he wants like the best for me. Same thing with Cliff. Like I feel like almost like I'm letting him down as a client if I'm not 100% perfect, which is why that would be why I would want to avoid having that conversation. Like, yeah, things were pretty good. I was like maybe like a little bit off, but like, no, like now I'm trying to like actually be like, hey, pros of this week, cons of this week, this is how things have gone, like, and just be really open and have like a conversation about like these kinds of things. And that I think has really, really helped me a lot so far. And like I said, by no means have I been perfect these past, you know, 2 weeks. But it is better than it's been previously. And all I can do is be better than I have been previously. And you know, other off seasons I've just gone completely like, I don't want to prep food, I don't want to like look at my scale, like fucking number, like fuck macros, like whatever. And you know, this time I'm doing a lot better as far as like having, you know, most of my meals, and then pretty much just having like, if I like something else a little bit over that, but not like so balls to the wall, like here is prep and then here is just like doing whatever the fuck you want. I'm not over here. Again, kind of like all the other videos, kind of like somewhere in the middle, right? Like you have to have some kind of like, everything in life is like chaos and order, like Jordan Peterson, that shit. Chaos, it's all about balancing the chaos and order, and you have to have both in your life, but you have to know how to live with it, like harmony of both of them. Once you've had the taste of like good food again, you're just like, fuck this meal prep shit. And it can be like, you really don't want that. So I do think that having some more like treat stuff within your day is going to be helpful so that you don't totally fall off the wagon, but you also don't want to have too much of that and like exclusively that, because that can really be easy to just like end up overeating and like then just binging, because you're like, well, I've already eaten so much of this, I might as well. That's kind of what happened to me with some stuff. I was like, yeah, I'll just fit it in, like it'll be like good, and then you're like, well, I'm already started eating this, like might as well just keep eating it, and you're like, god damn it, why am I like this? That's what happened with nuts and more this week. Don't buy that shit if you do not have fat macros or the, you know, with the control, because that shit is so good. But again, I didn't eat the jar in one day, right? Which I could definitely do that easily. I had it every day, and I probably had maybe a little bit like extra than I had like accounted for, but it was better than just like sitting down with one jar and like eating it, which I've done that too, not with nuts anymore, but just in general. So there's really no right or wrong, like any of this post-show stuff that I've talked about. There's been so many things that I've covered, I know, and there really is no right or wrong way, you guys. It's all about what works for you, and at the end of the day, you have to balance the chaos and the order within your life and within your crazy post-competition brain. But no matter what it is, have a plan. The plan can change, but sitting down and having some sort of plan for your week, you know, the first few weeks afterwards is going to be really, really helpful. 2, have somebody that you can talk to, whether it's a coach, mentor, significant other, family, friend, other competitor, whatever it is, somebody that you can open up and talk to. 3, be honest with yourself and have those conversations that we don't want to have with ourselves. That is going to be the only way that you're going to be able to handle all these changes. And if you're just like feeling a lot of like feels and stuff, write it down, you know, just journal it out, like just get it out. You know, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? What can I do better? You know, all these things, like what am I struggling with? How do I, you know, avoid that? Like, how do I set up my environment better? Like having these conversations with yourself and then other people. But first it has to start with you, taking personal responsibility for it, and knowing that you can only be better than your last off season or your last post show period. And there really is no right or wrong way to do it. And you just have to figure out what works for you in your context, in your life. So this wraps up the post-competition series. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was really fun, and I wanted to do it as it was fresh on my brain, and I get so many questions, because I know in like a few weeks I'm gonna like not completely forget about all this, but it's just not as like, it doesn't hit home as hard, right? Because in a few weeks I'll be like way more normal. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I promise to be back on the YouTube train. It's gonna be videos just like this, no vlogs. Sorry, I know a lot of people ask me for vlogs, but for right now, it's not happening. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great day, and I'll catch y'all next time.